I got my draft notice 1942. I went into the service in 1943. They pulled me right out of North High School, myself and 3 other boys. I survived. The other 3 boys were killed during the invasion. I went overseas, put 3 years in England, just before the invasion. And the colonel told anybody, you weren't on duty, you were not needed in the hospital. He gave us permission to go to town. Rain was coming down with a little mist. And I walked past this bar, this pub, and I heard some laughter and some singing, so it'd be a good spot for me to go in there and forget the day's work. As I was going in, the 4 beautiful English girls were coming out, and I held the door open for them. When this one girl touched my hand, and I turned around and I looked at her, and she smiled, and her soft voice told me, thank you for holding. I was gone. That was it. That was it. And when this girl came into my life, my heart told me, you've got something here, hang on to it. Second dance, I went with Joyce. My Italian friend was going to London, and I told him, I said, Pappy, bring me back a corsage. I want to give it to Joyce for the dance. He came back, he handed me a corsage. Now this is during wartime. And I said, where in the, did you get a corsage? He said, don't ask. He says, I went all over London and I finally, well, I gave it to her. And when I was pinning it on her, she was trembling. And when she kissed me, I have never, ever since been touched like that. My heart just flipped all over. One morning we were having the mess hall. Sergeant Lynn, very good friend of mine, jumped up on the table. He said, we've just got orders to close shop. We're going to go to the Pacific and open up a hospital in the Pacific. I did not have time to talk to Joyce. I called her on the phone. The lady at the phone answered the phone and says, Tony, she's not here. Her and her sister went to London. Their parents lived in London. London was being heavily bombed. And she says, normally they would be home by this, they would be back, but they're not back. And I told her what was happening. She says, I will tell Joyce. That's where it ended. In the meantime, I get married, and I'm married 54 years. I'm watching a war movie. My lovely wife is reading a book. She puts the book down and she says, honey, she says, let's try to find Joyce. Out of the clear blue. 2 weeks after my wife had passed away, I get a letter from this lady. She says, Tony, I have found Joyce. She says, Joyce died. I did not want to die with a broken heart. I wanted to make sure that Joyce knew I loved her and loved her and loved her to the end. You don't know how my heart was jumping for joy when I knew I was going to go kneel and say a rosary to the woman I loved. My name is Tony Canino, and my wish of a lifetime was to go back to England, place an orchid on the graveside of my true love.